you're in a caloric deficit and you're not taking in a massive amount of toxins, your body has the capacity to deal with the toxins that come with the crappy chicken breast or the crappy vegetables, right? It's all about toxic burden. Like, where's the burden in your life? Identify it, and then start to eliminate or remove it. So if you're in a caloric deficit, you know that the amount of toxins coming in will be at least balanced with the amount of toxins going out, right? Ideally, the amount of toxins coming in is less than what your body is able to handle in excretion. So I'm always considerate of how can I increase my body's ability to excrete through increasing my fluid intake, increasing typically the fiber intake, and increasing my sweating through exercise and saunas. Like, I want my body excreting toxins through all pathways possible so that my toxic intake never is exceeding my body's ability to excrete.
I mean, but wouldn't you feel worse mentally though if you took something in, like if you just ate because you were hungry and you knew it wasn't going to help you at this point? Wouldn't it just be like, fuck, well, I just ate something that I didn't want?
On what scale, right? Like, I'm not going to go and eat Doritos and Taco Bell, right?
Right.
Like, it's going to be, if I can't find something that's like meat and vegetables, I'm not going to eat, right? I just wait, or I'd maybe have some like almonds or something. But yeah, I think it's always a scale, and I would certainly never go to McDonald's or something like that's just not even. It doesn't even cross my mind anymore. Like, and again, everyone goes through that cycle of life where I can get away with this because I'm 19 or I'm 25, and like it's okay. It's still not okay. Just because you can be 6 or 8% body fat and eat McDonald's does not make it okay. It's
right.
Your body's accumulating toxins with everything you do, especially living in a place like New York City. Like, your body's you're breathing in toxins. There's toxins in the air, there's toxins in the water, everything, right? It's toxic. So you have to be really aware, because if you exceed your body's ability to excrete toxins, where does it go? It goes into your fat cells, and then your body doesn't want to excrete those toxins again, so it holds onto your fat cells. So anyone who has a hard time burning fat, oftentimes it's toxic burden. So the first thing I do in what I call my first phase of fat loss, decrease the toxic burden, toxic intake, right? So I'll have someone identify their lifestyle, their nutrition intake, and go, well, pull that out, pull that out, pull that out, and like just get rid of whatever's toxic in their life. And sometimes it's as simple as like the deodorant, the toothpaste, the hairspray, the cologne, like that stuff, it matters, you know? Or maybe it's the air freshener in their car, like all that stuff is toxic. Like if it's like a strong odor, it's likely a phthalate, which is going to be estrogenic. So we pull that stuff out, we pull out anything in the food that's going to be toxic, and then we say, well, let's see what happens, and give your body the ability to start excreting that stuff, because now your body has like, you're not exceeding your body's ability to excrete.
Is it getting more difficult to pull those things out in terms of food, like the toxins, because I don't know if it's because of deregulation or things like that, but it seems like food is becoming dirtier, and the water is becoming dirtier. And
the only evolution has to be we're going to start growing our own foods, right? Like, I think in the next 2 years I'll probably have everything grown myself. Ideally, I'll have a farm, maybe an indoor grow space for vegetables. I think that's just the evolution of it, right? Everyone's going to have their own little greenhouse in the backyard that is, filtered air and the sunlight coming through the greenhouse. So
I'm having a hard time picturing you in overalls and a straw hat.
Dude, no doubt, man. Like, it's funny because I'm a kid. I'm a city boy, and like my dad has a farm, and through my whole life I was like, I don't want to go there. Like, I don't want to go to a farm. And now, like,
now you're like, give me the farm.
Out there,
all I want to do is be on a farm.
Do you hunt?
No, I can't. I can't kill animals. I can eat them, but I can't kill them. It makes no sense.
There's a disconnect there. You may want to explore that, because I'm exploring it for myself, right? Like, how much before you eat, do you take a minute to just thank the animal for giving its life?
I don't. But I do take a minute to pray.
Yeah.
And I always do that.
And like the idea that was once a living thing is a very powerful opportunity to learn.
We'll talk about that a little bit more, because you've been talking more about mindfulness, which I love.
Yeah.
But you've really dove into this the last 3 years.
I think if I can't kill it, I shouldn't eat it. Like, if I don't have like the sheer appreciation for this thing that's literally alive. Yeah. Like, how can I consume it?
Interesting.
Like, I think I have to almost like express my gratitude and love to this thing before I kill it.
Right.
And be like, thank you. Like, I don't know, man. Like, I just feel like it needs to come from my heart. Like, thank you so much for giving your life. And then to actually physically do it makes it real. You'll appreciate the food that you're eating so much more. Like, as a culture, we're so wasteful. We throw so much stuff in the trash because we don't appreciate it. Like, oh, I'll just throw this piece of steak in the trash. Or that was alive. So if you kill it, you think you'd still throw it away? Like,
talk to me about like chewing your food now? Talk to me about how you enjoy your eating, because when you were doing contest prep, it was very different.
It was about consuming.
And even me now, like I find at times when I enjoy my food, I almost feel like my body looks a little bit better.
Oh,
but when I get into these,
So there's science behind that.
Right.
That sounds woo, but there's science, right? So
Right.
you're talking autonomic nervous system balance. So if I come and I just scarf down a chicken breast between clients because I'm busy or I'm
Sure.
working, well, what's the state of my digestive tract at that moment? What's the state of my nervous system inside my body? And if I'm in a state of high arousal, sympathetic stress, my body's, you're literally in a state of fight or flight. Your body's getting ready to mobilize and move. Digestion is halted. So if I consume that, it's literally going to sit in your stomach and often putrefy. So your body's not ready to digest and absorb food. So in order to slow down and breathe and be thankful and be grateful or pray or whatever your mode of gratitude is, taking that 5 minutes or 3 minutes or 5 breaths will literally bring you down from this place of high sympathetic arousal, fight or flight, into parasympathetic, which is rest and digest. So I recommend everybody do that. You think about how we've evolved as a culture over thousands of years to pray before a meal. Well, why? Same thing, right? Prepare your body. Like, say thank you for this thing that was once alive, that gave its life for you, so that you could sustain and procreate. And now you get to enjoy it and fuel your body and nourish your next mission or journey, whatever. And so that's how it's just a shift in like enjoying flavors and just being grateful that this, whatever, even if it was a plant, like.
what's the biggest change did you feel, because there's always this epiphany. I feel like when you read something sometimes or you experiment with something, you're like, oh my God, that's it. Why haven't I been doing this? Was there a major change that went on in your body? Maybe it was internally. Maybe it was how regular your body was, how you started resting. Maybe it was everything. But was there something specific that stuck out in your head when you kind of made this journey? I mean, you got to admit that it's a 180.
Oh, yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, man, it's how your body feels on a day-to-day basis. And so many of us don't know how our body feels. We disconnect, right? We're so busy being busy. We're so busy, cranking up the radio as soon as we get in the car, turning on the TV, doing whatever we can to not pay attention to our thoughts and our body. So as soon as I started like paying attention to my body, you can kind of get this overall sense of the tone. Like, I have a little bit of anxiety here, I have a little bit of pain here, I have a little bit of pain there. And then you start paying attention to things. And I think that was kind of the shift for me, is when I started to pay attention to, well, why am I holding tension in my face? Or why am I holding tension in my neck? Or why am I up here? And you can start changing it, right? So mindfulness and paying attention is step one in awareness and making that progression away from it. As soon as I started paying attention to the amount of tension and tone in my body, I started to get a little uncomfortable with the reality of how big I was, and my posture was thrown off, and I'd eat and I'd be all bloated and like just not feel well, like my food would sit in my stomach. So I was like, well, what would happen if I just slow down? And all of a sudden now I can eat the same amount of food and feel better, or I can feel like I'm getting leaner, or I can feel like, just overall it doesn't affect you in a negative way. As a bodybuilder, I was so often tired from eating because it's like, there's so much, that caloric load is actually exhausting to your body. So learning to just pay attention and feel my body and like take inventory of my posture, take inventory of my breath, just allow me to pay attention. And do you want to feel like crap? No, you want to feel good, and you have the ability to change that at any moment. So why not, right? Why wouldn't you?
But how do you get into that, right? So I think a lot of people know that meditation is good for them, and that
It's
they
not
want,
meditation for most people.
But I know, but I'm saying that they mindfulness is good for them. I think a lot of it is a buzzword now. They see it on magazine covers, they see it on internet, but they don't really know how to get into it. And maybe I'm one of them, because I feel like that I'm a lot of times busy being busy. I don't eat.
Sure.
Maybe it's just I was way into intermittent fasting before it was a fad of recently,
Sure.
But like the truth is I don't think a lot of people know how to get in tune with themselves. So how did you like make that step? Like how did you make those steps?
So mine was out of necessity, or what I call necessity. So I ran into a situation, or numerous situations, where I didn't like the fact that other people, or at least the story I told myself, was that other people were influencing the person I was. So we all have those people in our life that kind of row us the wrong way. And,
Who
my
were those
sister,
people?
my sister, my wife, like,
Yeah.
the people who know how to push your buttons, right?
Yeah.
They're like, gosh, I hate that. I get angry with you. And, I had a friend at the time who said, well, why do you let them do that to you? I said, well, I don't let them do it to me. They do it. I'm like, no. Like, you let them.
How dare he say that?
Right.
No,
No, he's right.
I was just kidding.
Yeah, so then, okay. And then so you start to take ownership for your actions, and you go, well, I have the ability to respond rather than react. If I just learn to like breathe down and not have that high amount of sympathetic, reactive, monkey brain, lizard brain kind of reaction, like going after things. So that was kind of how it started for me. It was like, I hate the idea that I'm being set off by somebody and through their words. And like that, I hate that someone has control over me. And a lot of us live that life, right? So that's how it started for me. But for the average person, just like taking a breath, one breath, and I do this with my kids every morning, and we do 5 breaths before we do anything. We're out of bed, they sit in my lap, we do 5 breaths.
By the way, one of the best lessons you can teach them right there. I think that's unbelievable.
To sit for 5 breaths.
Good for you.
Yeah, and because they sit in my lap, I can feel if they're moving. So like I'll just like calm them, and we'll walk through. I'll whisper in their ear, and they can feel my breathing into their.
Are they always receptive to that, or do they kind of want to? They're like, "Daddy, no, I don't want to do this today," type of thing. How do you feel?
Now it's just part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's part. It's, I push the 5 breaths now. It sometimes ends up being 10 or 20, but. In the beginning, they're like, what are we doing? At the beginning, they were kind of curious about it, and then once they're into it and they feel like you can literally, and it's funny, as a dad, you get this, you're a dad as well, this is like their, how I deal with punishment, if you will. Like, not a punishment, but like, some kid, like, you're being bad, go sit in the corner, or you're being bad, go to your room. Like, I don't do anything.
No,
hey, man.
let's
I'm like, hey, can you just go take 5 breaths? And what happens? It's like diffuse. If they're running around being crazy, I'm like, hey, Benjamin, 5 breaths. And he goes, and it's like, and I'm calm, I'm not being crazy anymore. Like, God, it's a superpower. Like, every parent needs to do that. It's literally like taking a couple of weeks in the beginning to teach them just to breathe and be present. So just to come back to your question, Zach, it's just that, right? It's like, and I said this to a friend of mine yesterday here in town. I'm like, hey, dude, how often do you breathe? He goes, I don't. Like, I'm like, okay, I want you to take awareness of every time we'll give them a cue. Like, every time you stand up from your desk, and every time you're about to come sit down at your desk, and you just stop for a second. Acknowledge the surroundings. It may be the light, and it may be the air, and it may be just your body, how your body feels. Mm-hmm. Take 1 breath and let it out slowly as you can. And just take your shoulders away from your ears, relax your jaw, relax your neck, relax your temples and face muscles, and just feel. Okay, I can do 1 breath.
Yeah.
And if you give yourself that external cue where you're doing it every time you get up and down from your desk, then it's achievable, right? Rather than going, hey man, I just want you to become mindful or present. People are like, what the hell does that mean?
There was any.
Right.
Yeah.
So you had like a quick fuse before?
Man, so, throwing my dad under the bus. My dad had, if you could imagine, like the Tasmanian devil of a temper. Like, there's no one on the planet that has a temper like this. So that's what I grew up watching. Yeah. And like, as a teenager, man, like I had a terrible fuse, a short fuse, and maybe a blessing and a curse. And now looking at it from a genetic standpoint, I have what's called a COMT mutation. So I actually stay very, very level until I'm not, and then I can't. So it's catecholamines. Your body releases cortisol and adrenaline, and my body doesn't recycle them. So they say elevated. So I'm very prone to like, I call it the Hulk smash gene, like Hulk no smash, Hulk no smash, Hulk no smash, Hulk smash.
Yeah.
So you just like go overboard with it, and then you can't come back down. So you're always racing, you're amped up, and like that's a genetic mutation. So being aware of it and being able to meditate through it, like you're like, oh, I'm okay now. And I don't ever get like that anymore, because I think the epigenetic expression of it, if you know epigenetics, is like you can control if that gene is expressed or not through exercise and meditation.
I have no idea what epigenetics is. I just nodded
Sounds
like I did. Yes.
Zach,
Well, it's just the expression of a gene, right? So we all have genes, and some of them are turned on or turned off based on our body's perception of our environment. So light can influence, exercise influences it, diet influences it, air influences it, all the toxins influence epigenetic expression. So certain pathways will be turned on and off according to what our surroundings are being sensed as. So it's just a preparatory mechanism to try to prepare you more for what you're going into, right?
But I mean,
and you think of DNA as like turning on the transcription of a protein,
Yeah.
which could be an enzyme, which could be something that just like prepares your body for what's about to happen. It's happening every second.
I mean, listen, I'm very open to discussing this because I'm kind of, as you always know, I'm very honest with this sort of thing, and I appreciate your honesty. But there's still things that I battle with, and am I 50% better than I was last year? Absolutely. Am I better than I was the year before? By 100%. Like every year and every day, I feel like it gets better and better, and that's part of my self-growth is awareness and mindfulness and gratefulness and all this stuff. But do you still find that? I mean, you said for a second, this is not me picking on you, but you're like, no, I don't do that anymore. Do you feel like it's completely clean now? Do you feel like you've gotten to the point that when that happens, and I'm sorry to ask this, but like, me and your friends, and I'm hoping this is going to help other people,
I I feel like if I wanted to go there, I could go there.
But why? But why even go there, right? I mean, that's,
Right. And,
Yeah.
and actually, this topic came up last week. Like, what if someone hurt your family?
well, that's a different story.
Right. So the ability to control that, and you talk about this with a lot of guys in the military, right? Like, some of the guys come back from war and they say, well, they want to try to forget what they did, and the psychologist will say, no, you do not forget what you did. You did what you did, but now you have the control, you have the power to choose to not do it.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that's a very powerful place to come to, rather than the victim, like, I didn't do it. Yes, I did do it. I'm very capable of doing that. I choose not to. And that's, once I had that awareness, like, I just am in control of my ability to not, rather than not being able to control what I do. I'm 100% in control of my ability to do it. And if I so wanted to go back there, I could. It's just
Right.
not a fun place for me, because it usually ends up with something bad happening.
Right.
Like in the high school years or the post, the college years. I'm like, I just don't want to go back there.
You don't want to be there.
Yeah.
But doesn't your lifestyle now kind of help you out in terms of staying more on the mellow side of things, because you're doing things that are more pleasing to you or more rewarding to you as you're going down a
Sure.
path of trying to get people to understand that they're more powerful, like if they are more mindful, and that it's
Right.
not, it doesn't have to be all about going into a gym and training for just an aesthetic purpose, or just for, to be
Right.
aesthetically pleasing.
So life, I think, to put it in the simplest form when it comes to exercise, life is this beautiful balance between, amongst the autonomic nervous system, between sympathetic and parasympathetic stresses. So sympathetic being like, I want to be able to run as fast as I can, get as amplified as I can at will. And conversely, as soon as I can afterwards, I want to get down here and be into a meditative state. And so how do we do that, right? Like, how do we train both ends of that spectrum so that I can push really hard on a hard leg day or on the track? And how do I get down into a meditative state or play with my baby and still be able to go within those extremes? And that's just called heart rate variability, right? So if everyone's ever measured HRV, heart rate variability, that's just your autonomic nervous system's ability to switch up and switch down as quickly as possible. It's this kind of resilience that you're building, right? Like, if I'm in a really stressful situation, how long does it take me to come down, right? Am I going to stay elevated for hours and hours and then ultimately stress myself out, burn out my adrenal glands because my cortisol is just running on overdrive? Or could I get myself out of it as quickly as possible? That's health. That's a healthy nervous system. That's healthy response to your stimulus and your surroundings, right? And we can measure that. We can quantify that with something called heart rate variability. So they're just basically measuring the amount of variability between the strokes of the heartbeat, right? And you can track that.
There's going to be, we're starting to hear more about HRV. I mean, I remember
It's everywhere.
Everywhere now. I mean, originally, I think it was Joel Jameson.
He's releasing my podcast today, actually.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, I just had him on. He's amazing.
Yeah, amazing. So I actually dove into his system first, and then I got into Omega Wave, Bioforce. Then I got into Omega Wave for about 3 years. Then I was talking the other day about O-ring. Yeah, Aura is it? Which is now it's a ring that you wear and it
It's
measures.
most accurate because you actually have an artery going through there, so
Huh.
it's more accurate than a wrist, like a watch.
Right.
It's probably about as accurate as a chest strap.
Yeah, which I'm going to end up purchasing and I'm going to experimenting with. But do you feel like that's where training's going to go? I mean, Roy McIlroy just won the other day on at the TPC, the Players Championship.
Yep.
I was with Rory 2 weeks ago shooting a video with him down in Jupiter.
Don was showing him up.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but I sat with him. I'm not his trainer, but I sat with him. I've known him. I've played golf with him before, and I'm like, Rory, let's just have a cup of coffee and let's just BS for a second. I want to hear what you're doing. In the back of my head, I'm going, God, I mean, what are we gonna deal with? I'll be honest, because I'm emceeing this thing for Golf Channel. What are you doing? He goes, I'm working with Omega Wave. I'm like, really? I'm like, so you're working you're looking at HRV? He goes, absolutely. Who are you working with? I'm working with Val. I'm like, really? Like, very impressive guy. Pretty much created it. I'm like, well, what are your workouts like? He starts going through it with me. I'm like, really? And I was so impressed, just his approach, focusing on his breath early on, focusing on diaphragmatic
Talk about the
breathing.
sport that would be perfect for that, right?
Perfect. But what's going on right now, in his last 7 events, he's had 6 top 10s and 1 win.
Right. So
I mean, the guy's won almost $5 million on tour already, and the season just started.
It's absolutely the next frontier of human performance.
100%.
Yeah, like
100%.
Its capability or potential, I think, almost rivals that of anabolic steroids. Like the ability to real time adjust your training so that your body is 100% able to absorb nutrients, able to recover, sleep better. It's unbelievable.
Every day, imagine waking up every day and your smartphone giving you feedback and saying, no, you need to be focusing more on skill today and not power and not strength, but you can focus on it. Basically breaks down those areas that you have to dive into. It's like that magic pill almost, where it's like, can you imagine waking up and knowing exactly what you're supposed to train?
So now we're doing 24-hour with the Aura, right? Like you wear it around the clock. So historically, just while you sleep. But now 24-hour HRV is very interesting as well, because you can just watch how your body's adapting throughout the day. Like, is it getting higher or less, right?
Right.
Higher, bigger HRV, ideally a good scenario in most cases.
Well, I had not to interrupt, but before I forget, now I understand from a performance standpoint, from an athletic-based standpoint, but when we were talking the other day and I was talking about dialing in some nutrition work on myself, and you said get one of these Auras, how do you feel like that? How do you translate that now? That I'm unsure how to do. From looking at HRV, is it more of a understanding your caloric expenditure? Is it more understanding how you metabolize nutrients? I mean, how do you?
Sure, it'll tell you how you metabolize your nutrients just based on it. You know, higher HRV is going to be more parasympathetic, but just it'll guide so more parasympathetic, more fat burning at rest, right? So if my body is recovering and my cortisol is lower, my body will burn more fat at rest. So how do we know that you're burning more fat at rest? Check it, rather than guessing.
Right.
Right. And if you're more sympathetic, we'll maybe manipulate, because we know your body's burning more carbs at rest. So how do we get you maybe more glycogen repleted? We give you maybe slightly higher carbohydrates, so it brings your cortisol down, allows your body to recover. So we'd use that specifically, to manipulate nutrition and training.
It's awesome. I'm gonna.
How much are they?
$300
$300.
$300. Not bad. I'm gonna end up buying one. I'm gonna look at one, but you should honestly think
I'll
about
hook
it.
you guys up with them, man. I'm actually invested in the company and very, very well connected.
Yeah, I
with
mean,
you.
that sounds.
If we, you know what, we should get. I mean, I'm wondering if we should get one and maybe do some work with him. Maybe it's an article where Ben kind of, because I'm very up on HRV, but only in one capacity. I'm more into. What I used it for was athletic performance.
Sure.
So I don't understand yet how to translate that into more of a.
Well, I think it's very subjective, right?
Okay.
I think nobody really knows. Like, so Mike Nelson, Mike T. Nelson?
I think I've heard of the name, but I've never met
He's
him.
a brilliant biochemistry guy, nutrition guy, who did his PhD actually in HRV and metabolic flexibility. He was just on the podcast last week or the week before. So like the correlation between heart rate variability and metabolic flexibility. So metabolic flexibility being your body's ability to switch between nutrients at rest. So he drew a direct correlation between high HRV and greater metabolic flexibility, which means ultimately burning more fat while you rest. So, and that just makes sense, right? Like if imagine your heart's always racing, your body's always throwing out cortisol, like you're running away from a lion. Well, guess what? Cortisol means likelihood of increased insulin resistance, less potential fat burning, depending on cycles.
Interesting.
Yeah, I would definitely do that. That
Yeah.
sounds really interesting.
I mean, I think there's a potential article and a way for him to get involved, even from a coaching aspect, because I think that would be great for him, and I think it'd be interesting. Content for us, because I don't see anyone really diving into this yet. There's little articles discussing it.
Not in
Yeah,
bodybuilding,
no.
not in fitness. No, nobody.
That's where, like, even Men's Health, they'll put out an article like, "This is what HRV is," and you're like,
Yeah.
"Really? Thank you." Like,
No, I've read up about it, just like you said. Like I've
Yeah.
seen it scattered here and there, but nothing like.
No, I'm putting together like a 10-page manual now, so
Okay.
I'm like building a module on it.
oh, interesting.
Just because, like, so that's how I'm building my business, is like everything's modular based, and HRV is a big part of it. Like, so I just call it the autonomic nervous system and stress management, because that maybe resonates people with more people. So like, how do you manage stress? Well, your stress is directly correlated with your HRV. So if your stress is high, your HRV will be low. So teaching people action items to actually intervene and modulate their stress. First thing is walking in the morning, breathing, like the simplest stuff. And when I tell people to do this, they're like, what do you
They're
mean?
like, what do you mean? Yeah,
how's that
it
going to help me
doesn't
build
work.
muscle?
Yeah, exactly.
I literally have this kid who's massive, and he's 21 years old. And he comes to me and goes, man, will you please coach me? I said, no.
I know you would say that too.
Why not? Well, because like you can't benefit from me, right? It's not worth your time or your money to come train with me because you're not ready. Like you would do, and I said we did one workout together, and you did 2 sets and was laying on the floor like vomiting, and I'm like, dude, you're just not ready. Like you could benefit from any trainer at 24-hour fitness just as much as you benefit from me now. You have to prepare your body to be able to push it to that level. So I said, well, here's your next 30 days. I need you to walk every morning for 40 to 50 minutes. Every morning, outside walk. That's it, just walk. And then you need you to come home and do 5 minutes of breathing. If you can do that for 30 days, come back and talk to me. And then we can look at it, because this guy all rigid and stuff. And people think, well, that's like because I'm tight. No, you're not tight. You're stressed.
Yeah.
Like, what does this look like? Like somebody's about to shoot me, right? My nervous system goes into high overdrive. So, tell him, like, hey, man, those are 2 things you need. He goes, what do you mean? I'm like, that's your first month of coaching. It's free. It's on me. Like, I won't even charge you for that advice, right? Right?
Did he do it or no?
I'll let you know. I presume not, right?
Yeah.
Because everyone is looking for the supplement protocol. Everyone's looking for the set and
Yeah,
rep
but
scheme.
but were you ready for that at 21? Think about
If
it.
someone in my place would have told me,
Yeah.
maybe. Like if Dorian Yates would have said, "Hey, dummy, go for a walk," I'd be like, "Fuck, okay." Not that I'm Dorian Yates, but you know, like
It clicked on me overnight
Yeah.
because I remember there was a point in my first 10, 12 years of my career, 15 years of my career where I was so like A-type driven. Like it was the set on paper, that's what I would do. But for my clients,
Sure.
I understood about calling audibles and I understood about
But were you
assessing.
happy?
Was I happy? Not as happy as I am now.
Okay. So there's
yeah.
a lot of that stuff, right? Like
Yeah.
what's going on outside of here? You know, are you stressed? Are you happy? Are you healthy? Like
Yeah.
if you have a healthy nervous system, you're way more resilient. Are
I
you
feel good.
active? You're way more resilient.
Right.
It's so much more diverse and there's so much more resilience if you have all those things. But most people aren't. Most people are overwhelmed and stressed and reactive and like on social media all day, and that's the only place in life they get joy. And that's an interesting conversation I like to talk about too.
Sure.
Is like where people bring joy into the life, like actually intelligently designing like segments of your life to bring in joy, to bring in like that autonomic response. But yeah, most people are just unhealthy all around.
Yeah, but you understand what I'm talking about. The guy
Totally.
went back in the day, you wrote the program out for, and he's like, I don't have access to a preacher bench. What do I do? And you're like, dude, relax, man.
Right.
Yeah,
Sure,
you fucking
totally,
kidding me?
totally.
Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't make a difference. Like,
Right.
chill out. But that's what I'm saying. There's so many people out there that are like that, and there's so many readers out there that are like that. They read
Right.
Ronnie's program, and it's like, this is what I have to do. And the reality is not to bash. I'm not bashing the magazine, but it's
No,
far
go ahead.
from what they need to be doing.
but I've
They're taking the wrong
always-
steps, I believe.
But I've always said that though, like that it doesn't have to be taken as gospel. Specifically, if you can't perform a move physically, or if you don't feel ready to do something, don't do it at
Have
all.
you guys ever written programs for different structures? Like, I think there's so much value in this. So this is when I talk about writing a blueprint for your greatest body. Like, you're not built like Don. You're not built like me. Why are you doing the same program? You're not
Yeah.
built like Ronnie Coleman. Like, and actually looking at a way to create an algorithm around like, hey, if you're this height and have these proportions, do these exercises or do these adjustments. Because that's how I would write the blueprint. That's why I think it'd take a long time. If you have these relative proportions, you need this. If you have these relative proportions, you need that. Because the exercise all fits differently.
Not in that way, and I think that would be really beneficial.
Totally.
Like,
'Cause
not
we
in
could,
that
we could
way.
create 3 to 4 avatars and make it fit everybody.
Yeah.
We probably even maybe 2 or 3 per body part.
That's kind of what we were talking. I mean, listen, I write programs based off of the FMS, so I use the functional movement screening. If there's any red flags, they go into my PTs. The PTs run through an SFMA, and then we sit with the team and we say, all right, these are the movements based off of how they move. But we're not doing bodybuilding. We're looking at it from a joint by joint approach, and we're determining, well, they got weird levers here and they shouldn't be moving in this pattern because he just can't get into that position because of his hips. And so those are the adjustments that we're making. But what you're saying, I think, is a little bit different.
Yeah, yes, there's that. Like, there's certainly looking at like why can't people get into these positions.
Right.
But it's even like a step down from that. Like movement aside, right? Not actually assessing movement, assessing structure, which I think has to be the foundation of it all. Like, what is your body meant to do? In a perfect world, if you could move really, really well, no injuries, no tightness, what should your body be doing? What exercise selection should you be looking at? Because that's the foundation of everything, right? And then beyond that, then it's like, well, how do I set up for the exercise? So it's exercise selection and setup, because that's what's going to determine what's working. And the best example for everybody watching or listening is like, well, if I'm doing a bench press and my shoulders are rolled forward, my pecs don't stand a chance of working. Like, it's literally an impossibility. Whereas if I roll them back, now they're going to work, and that's a setup cue. And there's many within every body part. So that's the foundation of it. And then beyond there, you go like, okay, do you have the ability to access the range that you want to do? An example there is like, can you get your hand above your head?
Right.
Can't get your hand above your head. You can't work your lats or your pecs in most instances from that lengthened position. So like assessing all of those things are going to be necessity in program development. But it's so simple, right? Like, it sounds complicated. It sounds like there's a bunch of things, but it's not. It's like, well, 1, look at your structure. 2, again, this could be the same point. 1 and 2, structure and setup is kind of the same thing. And then, do you have the mobility to access range? And then go. Like,
Right.
Once you've got this, learn the skill and get after it.
That'd be an interesting
Yeah,
article to do in the mag,
it would.
where like train for your different structure, and like you just said, you choose three basic. I mean, structurally, what would you just do? Like, would you say endomorph, ectomorph,
No.
mesomorph? You wouldn't even go-
Somatotype, I think, is like obscure at best, right? I think it just comes down to
Like fire hydrant or like.
well, I don't think you can classify it that easily, but you could just look at like, are your femurs, so your upper leg from your hip to your knee, longer than your lower leg?
Right.
Are they shorter than your lower leg, or are they the same?
Almost like a little questionnaire where you check the boxes
Right.
type of thing, and then
Yeah,
that's
or
cool.
not even that. Even
That's
if it was
cool.
like if it's 1, 2, and 3, right? And if it's 1, do these exercises. 2, do these exercises. 3, do these exercises. Here's the adjustments. And for chest, like, do you have a flat sternum, an average sternum, or a broad sternum, like a big sternum? That makes a big difference.
Sure.
So, and like in how you should set up, like, someone with a really flat rib cage or flat sternum is never going to benefit from a bench press. They just won't. Whereas someone like me can do bench presses all day and get a huge chest,
Right.
because I have a big rib cage, right? This more like almost horizontal sternal angle, right? Whereas most people have a vertical sternal angle, and them doing a bench press is a waste of time.
Right.
Well, they don't know that. Whereas if you write a program in Muscle and Fitness and you go, hey man, do a bench press, well, who?
Right.
Right? Like, you could do a bench press all day and get nothing but sore shoulders, right? I could do a bench press, he could do a bench press and probably get a little more result. And it's just lever. It's just the way your body
It
works.
was interesting because when I went down, it was at MI40 gym in Tampa. I trained with him, and I love the approach because the first thing that he did was he pretty much assessed. We threw a little bit of a screening on, what movement, if we were doing a pressing, if I was supposed to do a horizontal pressing one day, he actually assessed, well, is it incline, is it flat, is it decline? And I remember him kind of looking at my angles and where I was able to contract the best, and he brought me to a decline. He goes, this is where you're going to be most successful. And listen, obviously, we did four or 5 sets of it. The time under tension was incredible. I felt like I was completely present on every inch of the repetition, and the next day my chest was freaking fried. Like I did volume training. So it does work, but it's also, I think it's really sending off a message to people that they're not used to hearing, and I think that's something that's interesting.
It is, but doesn't it also follow the pattern of what you were just talking about with the ring? Things are going to be now more specific to your needs.
Individualized.
Yeah,
That's the future, man.
And that's, and that's a good thing because people won't be wasting their time. They're going to see more results, want to stay with it, and because if you don't see results, you're going to maybe start hating it, want to leave it, quit.
And you put the onus outside of yourself, right? It's the external locus of control. I can't do it. I don't have the time. I don't have the genetics. I don't know the nutrition. It's all bullshit. It's all a story you tell yourself. You absolutely can. If you set a goal and you say, Zach says, hey man, I want to put on 20 pounds of muscle. Well, I don't know if I can do it. My mom was fat and my dad was skinny, and like you're coming up with all these stories.
Yeah, it's already bullshit.
It's all bullshit. Like, yes, you can. Like, and because genes are only kind of what sets you up. It's the epigenetics. It's actually what your environment that changes that has the expression of the genes. So even if you have the genetics to be fat, or the genetics to be skinny, or the genetics for muscle or not, like that's only a very small part of the picture.
And you find that all bullshit, right? When someone comes to you and they're like, well, does genetics have a play?
Well, so of course it does at some level,
yes,
right? Like some people are going to have a genetic card stacked in their favor completely, and some people are going to have genetic cards stacked against them. But that doesn't mean that we all can't build a body that's amazing for us.
Right.
Like if you would have saw me at 17 years old or 16 years old, it's funny, I'll tell you a story in a second. When I first came to New York, in 1998 Mr. Olympia, I was 160 pounds. And I was like, I came to Mr. Olympia, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And everyone's like,
Ronnie won that year?
You did, first year.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, dude, you're never going to be a bodybuilder. And I was 160. Next year I came back in Vegas, 1 year to the day, and I was 230. And everyone goes, what did you do?
What the hell happened? Yeah.
I'm like, well, I started eating protein. I was completely natural. I was a kid. Like, I started eating protein. I started training twice a day. I was a vegetarian prior to that. I was like, body response. And like, well, did I have the genetics? No, man, I just maybe. But I had incredible persistence and resolve. I was literally training twice a day for 365 days. Was it smart? No, but at 17 it works.
Right.
So man, like this whatever story you have is the thing that's going to hold you back. There was nothing in my mind that was going to hold me back. I literally at 16 I told my dad, I think it was 17. I said, Dad, I'm going to be on that stage one day. He's like, okay, son. I'm sure he's rolling his eyes, but. When I went to the Olympia, I gave him my jacket, and I was like, here, man, like, I told you I was going to be here, and I gave you this jacket to prove it. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
Story.
yeah. And I had a flashback last night walking into the boxing, because I went to boxing at the theater at the Garden,
Yeah.
and that's where they held the Olympia in '98. And it was like, I was
You probably haven't
walking-
been back there
I
since.
haven't been back since.
Yeah.
And I was walking up the stairs, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've been here before. And I'm
Yeah.
like, yes. I'm like, this is where I met Flex Wheeler, and this is where I met Ronnie Coleman, and I was like, oh my God, I feel like a little kid again, man. It was awesome. It was a great
What's that
experience.
been like? I understand internally what it's done for you, because mentally you're about as clear as probably you've ever been in your life right now, and you probably feel as good as you've ever felt in your life. But you're still holding a lot of muscle, man. I mean, you still look.
It's not on purpose.
Yeah, but I think you look great. I
Thank
mean, I think you look great. I mean, I know, and I can see, because I am a fan. I do watch you on social media. I see some days. I know you're doing your yoga. I see you in their training. I still see it's in those eyes a little bit. You know, like.
Well, so I realized, like, when I'm in there, like anything, and I suggest this to everybody, like, if you're doing it, do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it half-assed.
Yeah.
Like, if you're gonna do it, if you're gonna have the time invested in anything, do it. Like, do it as best you can. Give it 100%. So when I'm in there training, I'm in there training. Like, I trained Derek Lentz for the Olympia last year. He was second place in the 212 Mr. Olympia, and well, he comes into the gym in like June or something, and he goes, "Ben, will you train me for Olympia?" I'm like, "Yes."
Here we
like,
go. He knew he was getting into it already. He's like,
Yeah,
damn it.
oh, my
I know I'm going to be working
Man,
out.
my weight loss is going really well. I was down at about 250, and I was
What do you weigh now?
Probably 265.
Okay.
But in 4 weeks, I went from 250 to 280, training 5 days a week, and that's that's like people are like, "Oh, what'd you take?" I'm like, "Nothing. I just trained." My body was bang. I was like, damn it, I was doing so well, and everyone else is like, "Oh yeah, tough problem to have." But like, it's a hard thing when for 20 years of your life, like your only focus is being the biggest, best human being on the planet, and now you're actually trying to unwind it, and it was going really well. But it always just keeps pulling me back, man. And when you're in the gym, like I said, like. One, he came to Tampa to train with me, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to just come and not train, and I'm there, and I'm going to show you who's the man. I'm going to bury you every day. Like, that was always my objective as a bodybuilder and after. So, yeah, that pulled me back in a little bit.
So for 20 years, you trained to be in the best condition that you could be in, to step on stages and to be judged, but, which has to be tough psychologically I don't know how you would do that. I've never done it, but is it just as hard when you decide not to do it, when you decide that you're done, and then you have to come down from it, and your body is going to change because you're not going to be training that way?
There's a lot of layers there, Zach. So early in my career as a bodybuilder, I did it because I loved it. I did it because I loved to train. I loved to push myself.
Yeah.
And that was amazing. And then as soon as I became a pro, it shifted a little bit. Because now you're getting paid, and you're not competing when you want to compete. You're competing when your sponsor says you have to compete. I had that conversation with a lot of young athletes. It's like, be careful what you wish for, because when it comes, it changes things a little bit. And so, I've been pro for 5 years at the time, and like by that point, I was like, man, I read it into my contracts. I'm like, I'll compete when I want to compete, because I just started to lose the joy for it, man. Like, I started to lose the passion, and you have to have that like killer instinct. I really want to have to go after it. So that was a big shift. And then, kind of fizzled out a little bit for you. Lose that purpose, because the purpose is no longer internal, now it's external. And then after competing, the only thing that was hard, if I could say, I don't believe anything in life is hard, but the only thing that maybe was surprisingly challenging for me was the psychological, unconscious habits of eating. So for 20 years, imagine you're constantly eating so for me to grow as much as I did, I was eating past satiation. Like, I was eating past the amount that I wanted to eat. Like, I was like, okay, I'm full, but I got another 300 calories to eat this meal. Like, just keep putting it in. So now I would eat much less often. So maybe 2 meals a day typically. But when I eat, I'll often go back and I'll resort back. Like, I'll set my meal on the table and have this like normal portioned out meal. And then I'll finish eating and I'm like, oh, I'll go find myself kind of mindlessly looking for snacks or like putting more food on my plate. I'm like, I don't need it, but you're unconsciously.
Are you hungry, or are you just kind of looking for it just for the
snacking?
Well, no, because my brain is used to eating past satiation, so I feel a little bit of satiation, but I'm not like full. So my brain goes back there. I'm like, oh, I gotta stop that. So I just have to become more mindful of like being present and going, well, you don't need it. Just go about your business. Like maybe exiting the kitchen and walking away. And if I'm aware of it, I'll walk away without cause. But some days you become mindless. You kind of become lost in your day, and that you revert back to it really fast. Really fast. So that's been, if there is a struggle, that's been the struggle. It's like breaking that unconscious habit of just eating to be the biggest human on the planet.
Yeah.
Well, so my next question, because I know we're clicking down on time here, but this is, I think you'd attest, this is going to be the first of many.
How often he shaves his head?
Yeah, here we go. We got to have one dumb joke out of him. So what's on your agenda now moving forward? I mean, like I said, it's been fun watching you go off, dart in one path in your career and get to a world-class level. and then make a complete, in my opinion, it's a 180. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
your mindset changed more than your body.
Yeah.
And your body's changed a
My
lot.
mindset was always changing. It was just I kept quiet about it because
Right.
I was going about my business. And so to answer your question, I really love the idea of becoming this catalyst for what I call intelligent muscle building, which is multifaceted. It's like using muscle building as a catalyst to become a better person rather than to disconnect from your body, as we talked about just before the interview. Like, I love this idea of, well, you're going to train every day. Most people are going to train or do something physical every day, whether it's like yoga or running or cycling or training in the gym. Use that as a daily battleground to become your best self. So exploring your discipline, exploring the self-talk in your brain, and like creating a positive mindset around it all. I think that is how you ultimately use the training to become the greatest version of yourself, become a great human being. And then the subcategory of that is like all of the other things that people aren't considering that go into building your greatest body. And I've created kind of this framework around, you know, what I call the 6 pillars of a lean, healthy, and muscular physique. I've put healthy in there obviously very, very intentionally, because health is, you know, a healthy organism is one that will grow or respond the way you want it to, and that could be muscular or fat loss. So you're ultimately striving for a healthy autonomic nervous system, just because we just talked about that. So heart rate variability, stress management, and autonomic nervous system. That's one pillar. And then we look at obviously training as being a pillar. We look at sleep as being a pillar. We look at nutrition as being a pillar. Mindset as being a pillar, and we look at your environment as being a pillar. All the things around you. So that's air, that's light, that's EMF. So all those things are playing into your body's ability to grow, respond, have a healthy autonomic nervous system, and sleep and recover. So all those things play in. So if you can imagine like your body in the middle, this little avatar, and all these things happening around you, you have these 6 pillars around you, all impacting your internal state, right? So my internal state is ultimately the thing I have to change if I want to grow or get smaller or get leaner or whatever. That's the internal state, right? So all those things are just vehicles for creating an internal response. So my training is just a vehicle to create an internal response. So most people when they train, I talk about this all the time in the podcast, most people are focused on what's outside of themselves. They're focused on how much am I lifting and how many reps I do, how many sets I do. Well, it doesn't matter. All that matters is you've created the internal response. And if you're not creating an internal response, you're wasting your time. So taking an intelligent approach to what you do outside of your body to ultimately create the internal response. And luckily for us, we're getting to the point now where we're starting to be able to quantify the internal response, right? Like we can quantify sleep, hooray. We can quantify the autonomic nervous system, hooray. Like we can quantify, you know, how training is influencing our body, again, with HRV. And maybe even looking at resting heart rate and capnography, which is the measurement of carbon dioxide in the system. So we can quantify these things and then, you know, be more objective about it rather than subjective.
One last question about something that we brushed up on earlier, but so with social media, I know it can be really negative for a lot of people. It can mentally affect them because they wish that they looked like somebody or they want that life in their heads, you know, because everybody looks like they're having fun.
Because what you think it is.
Yeah, because although they're probably not. The easiest thing is to, you know, don't look at it, right? That's the easiest thing to do, like to say. But the other thing that Don and I talk about a lot is there's also a lot of misinformation on there.
Totally.
And we don't know.
It's the best one of 300 selfies they took that day.
Yeah, but how do you, like, what is it, how do you police it? Or how do you figure out a way to manage it to
I think we're going to ask this question to
everyone.
everyone.
Because we don't, yeah, we need an answer.
I got my theories on this, but I definitely want to hear it.
But we explore it a lot because but I'm also interested in what other people have to say. Is the best ways to kind of flag the people that are worth putting out information and ideas worth latching onto, and the ones that maybe you don't, you know, you swipe left on or whatever, you get rid of, or whatever those phrases. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah. You know, it's you know, the idea of you know, a drop of dye in a bucket isn't going to hurt anybody, but when you continuously drops dye in the bucket, eventually the bucket's going to turn color, right? So I think it's always dose dependent. Like if it's like I'm getting a lot of it, well, that's a bad thing. So you have to be very aware of the drops of dye in the bucket. So you know, I'm very aware of who I follow and what I'm looking at, and what my kids are looking at, and I think social media has tremendous benefits. I mean, so I met this guy, right? Like, how do you meet great people? Well, choose who you're looking at and connect with people who you have similar interests with. You just have to curate it, man.
But some people don't know, like especially beginners who may not know, and they may be duped, or they may be, you know, just convinced that somebody is an expert when
Well,
they're really not.
Sure,
So
man.
it's-
I get it. That's a tough question to answer as far as like who's an expert, because most people become an expert by the way they look, which is
Right.
often very, very misleading. Yeah, I mean, the people who look the best are typically the people who have the greatest margin for error and just can make the greatest number of mistakes. And I don't know if there's an answer for that. I think if you're getting your information on social media, you got bigger problems to worry about.
Yeah, I agree.
And
Bringing up from something, Lane Norton, I'm sorry, who I know you know Lane, right?
I'm acquainted with Lane.
Oh, okay. I was following him on social media recently, and I was looking at some comments because he's been butchering people, and at first I'm looking at it and I'm going, I just got wasting this time, man. Like, and I was almost frustrating me for a minute, and I actually, he was the one person, I honest to God, I really don't read comments, but I was reading, because I was getting a kick out of people coming at him. And he turned around, he passed a comment and said, there's so much shit out there that I'm doing society an injustice if I'm not policing it a little bit, to that effect. And I thought about what he said, and I said, you know what, I get it, you're in the fitness industry, call yourself what you
Who
want.
made him God?
Exactly. Okay.
So,
thank you.
again, this may be a really bad...
And I don't know, I mean, I had Lane on my podcast once, I don't know him from a hole in the wall, we literally had a 30-minute conversation, he was very pleasant, so I have nothing good or bad to say about him, but my thing is that, why waste your time feeding that fire? Just ignore it and move on.
Well,
You're gonna have
that could be a whole podcast in
Yeah.
itself. Like, and again, I don't want to speak bad about anybody, but why waste your time? There's deeper levels
Sure.
to his issues.
Yeah.
Right. Again, neither here nor there.
I think
Sure.
you should just breathe. You should take 5 breaths.
Well, no, dude. So that's an unconscious inadequacy, right? Like you're trying to knock other people down so you feel better about yourself.
Yeah.
It's dick measuring.
Yeah.
To put it bluntly, like you're compensating for something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
And
Sorry
it-
about the Corvette.
You get these jokes are
Got a
terrible.
Kia
but-
Sorrento, man. Like, that's...
Dude, whatever it is, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's literally, like, what else could you possibly say? Why would you feel the need to
Yeah.
play God
I
and
don't know.
dismantle someone else's career?
But these are problems going on. These are common problems going on in the industry right now.
I've unfollowed them for that reason,
Yeah.
man. Like, dude, you're ruining people's life, and you're so ignorant to and stupid to the fact that, like, it's none of your fucking business.
Yeah,
Like, who
yeah.
are you to play judge, jury, and executioner, man?
Right.
Well, I brought this up to Don once. Don asked a question that I thought was a good question for somebody. It was just, why do this move for a specific reason? And somebody just chimed in and was just like, get out of here, ass, something like that, just beat it. And it was, nobody answered the question, but it was like, so. It was
Listen, I'll admit once, I mean, I was poking for a second
Yeah, but
because
dude, but it
everything,
didn't come off that way.
I knew the guy, everything he was doing was absolutely wrong.
Yeah,
I
but-
hated his rib position. I hated everything he
but
was
it
doing.
didn't
So I
come
was
off
like,
that way,
yeah,
man.
I know because I'm smart about it.
Yeah.
And I knew he was gonna fire back, so that was just proof right there. I didn't respond.
He didn't fire back,
Yeah.
though. It was somebody else.
Someone else did.
But
yeah,
the whole
still.
thing
Always
was,
causing trouble, Don.
but it was a good question.
You gotta poke once in a while.
It was a good
We're looking
question,
for
though.
content
But
here.
it was a good question,
Yeah,
though, dude.
it was
Like,
a- it
I
was a
thought
good
it was a
one.
good
I'm always
question,
down- no,
and
it
like
was-
that's
it was
why
a
I
good
was
question.
like, hey, like that's
Yeah.
a solid question. And then to have somebody come in and just be like, beat
Well,
it.
people
it's
are
like,
angry. You
I
have to-
know,
you have to
I
just-
get it, I understand, but it's just like
I
so
feel like
unnecessary.
if you're doing social media to help better people's lives and be a positive influence, and I think that's great. I think once you start really, it becomes a lot more than that for yourself. I think you got to check yourself.
And
out
I
on it.
think blocking people is I guess sometimes the way I choose to do it, but you can't block out all the bad people in life, right?
No.
You're going to experience bad people in life, so learning how to kind of cope. And one of the best lessons I've ever learned in my life is when I was very young, I began putting people on a pedestal, whether it be a bodybuilder or someone in my circle, or like I was like, wow, like they've got all their shit together. Like I just wish I could have that car. I just wish I could have whatever, right? And you get to meet them, and you go, oh man, they're way more messed up than I am.
Yeah.
But yet they externally have their stuff together. So once you start to realize that, you stop putting people on a pedestal.
Yeah.
Like I still aspire, like I'm like, oh, I really want, I love that Don does this. I love that Don's able to be such a great guy all the time and smile all the time and feel like he's got joy.
And hang out with
But
Zach.
at the same time, I don't aspire to be Don.
Of
Like
course
I may
not, no.
aspire to like, oh, I
No,
like
you want to
that-
be your best you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like I'm like, I love the fact that you're so full of joy. Like I like that, but that doesn't mean I want to be Don.
No.
And I think.
No, but I think that's part of it also. You start surrounding yourself with people that you look at something
Become the avatar.
from you and you're like, wow, Ben Scott, I love how Ben approaches this, or I love how Zach approaches that. And you surround yourself with them because you, in a way, you want a little bit of that to rub off on you and
Sure.
you enjoy their company.
Yeah.
And I think that's great. I
It's
think
just
it's
a daily daily reminder to pull up your socks, rather than other people who are just like, oh, I want to be like that guy. Well,
Right.
No, you don't.
No,
Trust me,
yeah.
like you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're going through a lot more than you think, especially those people who are so into what they're doing on social media.
Yeah.
There's deeper stuff there, man.
Yeah.
Like, it really is.
Totally
Because,
agree.
I mean, it doesn't, because you got to own it all if you want to be that person. It comes with a lot more baggage than you
Well,
think.
yeah, I'll
And-
face that to you today, but like, be careful what you wish for,
Yeah.
because when it finally comes, it is sometimes a lot more than you bargained for. Like, some of the people you work with, like, you can't expect, like, hey, I'm gonna have one movie, it's gonna be huge, and all of a sudden I can't walk down the street without being harassed. Like, you can't prepare for that. So be careful what you wish for, because even with me, like, I'm not a celebrity or anything, but you walk down the road and people stop you every few minutes.
Yeah.
And you're like,
Hey, Ben, oh my God.
yeah, right.
Sure.
And okay, like, be prepared for that stuff. And,
Right.
If you're begging for this social media exposure, so you're showing your booty on it, like, be careful, because you're going to get attention that you're looking for. It just may not
Right.
be the one that you're
Right.
looking for.
All right, that's it. Thanks everybody for watching, and thank you, Ben, for being here. It was awesome. Please let us know where to find you so everybody can not watch us and watch you instead.
exactly.
I'm way cooler.
Yeah.
Way cooler.
So,
Way smarter.
social media is BPAK Fitness, BPAK Fitness. I've also got a podcast called the Muscle Intelligence Podcast, which is a great place to find me.
Yeah, I literally watch it all weekend. I'm not kidding around, and I can't get enough of it. It's really, really cool.
Thank you.
We got
And this is our first of hopefully many sit downs, because
Yeah.
we have a lot to pick your brain about, and I think there's a lot that you can pass over to society here and
Very
teach them.
blessed to learn from some very smart people. I got the world's greatest experts when it comes to health, optimization, longevity, cognitive enhancement on the podcast, and I stay on the shoulder of giants.
What I like about it too is that it's delivered in a way that it's digestible. So sometimes, like, that can be intimidating for some,
Totally.
especially because some of the topics are,
Yeah, that's always my thing. Is like taking what this guy says and making sense of it.
Yeah.
Because like people don't care about the science necessarily, care about the application. So that maybe if I have an advantage in that podcast is because I've taken a lot of the science and applied it. I go, okay, I did this, and this is what I felt, and this is how you guys may want to think about this, and this is how you may apply it, and I frame it around this framework, right? So it gives people a little bit of an opportunity to start creating kind of a guideline on how all these things could possibly fit into your goals.
but I like, there's both. So you get the
Totally.
science, but it's also, given in a way that it's not, I don't feel like someone's just throwing words at me that I don't understand. It's broken down to where even really complex subjects between you and the expert you're speaking with are delivered in a manner in which it does make sense and I can piece it together. So really complex things are, I walk away feeling like I have learned something. And then, because it's me, I immediately forget it.
So write it down. I said that every
See?
podcast.
I just learned something.
We're going to close out on that one. Guys, till next time, thanks again.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks again, Ben. Really, it was awesome.